Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started. I do show that it is the top of the hour. First thing I want to let you know is that this session is being recorded. If you object to being recorded, you can disconnect at this time. I'm going to go ahead and display my PowerPoint for you and share the information available. You will notice that in the chat feature, there is information on how to download that available information. So if you want a copy of the PowerPoint, it is available to you. The handout that's in there is an optional handout, but it does give some additional information, and I'll go ahead and talk about that as we go through the presentation today. So, again, welcome to the Recovery Audit Contractor or RAC discussion period. This is an informational session. It does not contain a live question and answer session. The live question and answer session is scheduled for 1 week from today at the same time, and the registration is available in our Learning Center should you be interested in that. So if you're interested, definitely take the opportunity and the time to go out and check that out and see if that's something that you want. With that said, a couple of other things coming up. Tomorrow there's a new session and another session, I guess, not a new session, but another session. And that one's going to be a little bit different as well. That one will allow you to meet a new recovery audit contractor. And we'll talk more about that in just a few slides and how when we look at a variety of different pieces of information. So I want you to be aware of that though. So you can register for either one of those sessions in the live events. Let's talk a little bit more about today's event. Today, Ellen Barrow will be joining me to help with chats, questions, answers, and technical support. So if you put anything into that chat feature, she's going to be able to get it back to me in terms of making sure we get it added to the next session. If there's a technical or a problem, she'll be able to work with my team to get you that support. She has put already the link to where you can locate the information for this presentation, which again is the PowerPoint. If you have something that you want, please make sure that you go out, use that link, but then you need that webinar password as well. It's going to ask for that. So if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to do anything. Again, I have started the recording, so this event is being recorded. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. Just so you are aware, this is an informational only session. We cannot get into the full RAC procedures and how they do their jobs and the things that they do. What we can educate on is some of the things that you might be affected by, such as the discussion period. So if information does change, you need to be aware of that. At this time, the information within this presentation and the information we're going to give you is the most current that we have available. And again, we'll talk about that because there is a change coming, and that informational session is tomorrow. If you are recording this session, we ask that you stop. CMS doesn't allow the recording for a profit-making purpose. We do record the session, and we will provide an encore in our YouTube channel. That information will then be presented to you in an e-news when it's available. I will try to get this encore available as quickly as possible. So that means hopefully by tomorrow morning or thereafter, it will be on YouTube, and then look for the announcement coming a little bit later next week. What do you need to know about this session today? Again, use the chat feature, put all of the stuff inside the chat feature. If we happen to have time, I will answer a few questions at the end, depending. If we don't, please attend the event that is in 1 week. Again, registration is available for you for that event, and you are more than welcome to register. 10 days to complete this course, and that's April 28th. Here's what you need to know to complete this course. Take the survey, and you're done. We will issue you a certificate. The certificate comes out via an email. So if you don't get an email from WebEx, and it's a WebEx automated email, then let us know and we'll get you some help and we'll get you that certificate. Sometimes people's move it into junk mail or into a variety of other things. Sometimes it's held and you have to mark it as a safe sender. So we want to make sure that if you're not getting those, we get you that information. I'm going to have Ellen put the email, which I'll say it out loud, but then I'll have Ellen type it into the chat as well. It's WPS.GHA.education@WPSIC.com. That is the same exact email that you're going to want to send any follow-up questions to. If you get those follow-up questions in by 4:25, we'll actually present them live during that session. And if not, We'll put them back together in an email and send them out. So what is on our agenda today? Today we're going to first of all explain what the RAC discussion period is, the Recovery Audit Contractor discussion period. Then we're going to explain why you can use it, why you would want to use it, and the importance of using it. Last, we're going to end with a live website demonstration. Now, the live website demonstration will help you locate information, changes, other things you might want to know about the discussion period. So first, we got to get through the basics, then we'll move to the website demonstration. Again, at any time, please use that chat feature. You can post questions within it. If it's a technical thing, we'll get back to you right away. If not, we will either respond to you today or next week. There are some key terms that I need you to be aware of. So first one, items you need to know. Additional documentation request, or ADR. This is a common term used by any medical review entity, so the RAC is not an exception to that. The RAC is the Recovery Audit Contractor. You'll see it listed on here as the third item. And the RAC has works with the MAC, or the Medicare Administrative Contractor, to recoup the money. So that becomes important to understand when we get to the actual process itself and when you can do a discussion period. So remember, the person doing the review is the Recovery Audit Contractor, the RAC. Therefore, they're sending you the ADR. They then take that documentation back and do a review, which gives a review results letter if it's a complex review. A review results letter means a person with medical knowledge, such as a registered nurse, will review it. Could it be someone like a physical therapist if it's a physical therapy claim? Sure. So it depends on, the medical knowledge depends on the type of claim that it is. So we want to make sure. What happens with the review results letter is what tells you whether or not they had a finding. Yep, it's all good. There's nothing wrong with your claim, stands alone, or no, we have a partial or a complete finding and we're going to overturn the claim. So that's what the review results letter is. That all comes from the Recovery Audit Contractor. Remember that the Recovery Audit Contractor is part of the Recovery Audit Program, and that program is part of the Medicare Program Integrity Program. They're looking to make sure claims are paid correctly. I'm going to explain a little bit more when we get into the website, a little bit more about some of those pieces of information and where you'll locate things that they're looking at and items like that. But initially, we do want to just focus again on this discussion period. So let's move on to the definition of the discussion period. So what is the discussion period overall? Why would you want to use it? Why is it important? The discussion period is an opportunity for you to disagree with the RAC's medical review decision. So again, it's something where you're going to go ahead and say, I don't agree with what's going on here. I don't agree with your decision. Here's medical documentation. Now, what's great about that is, let's say that you missed something. The RAC will take that in as a part of the discussion period. A great example of that is the RAC report's getting a lot of services that need an order, but we don't actually have the order, or it's not signed, or it doesn't have the necessary information. So when you're looking at that, you want to make sure that you're aware of what the discussion period is. So again, it's after a review results letter comes, you get 30 days. Write this down, make a note, highlight it, squiggle it, 30 days. What happens during that time frame is the RAC waits on you to send in information. So while the discussion period in total could be up to 45 days, it doesn't necessarily have to be. If you send it in 10 days and the RAC makes their decision within 15 to 20 days, there's no reason for it to wait additionally. And I'll talk about why that is when we get a little bit further down. So again, there is a discussion period. There is an opportunity to go out to the RAC and use their portal. The key thing there, it's the RAC's portal. It's not WPS portal. Now that would then give you the review results letter. So depending on how you have that set up, you may be able to do that within their portal. We do not have access to that portal, but I will show you where it's located and how to find that information later. There are also sometimes that RACs do non-complex reviews. In other words, the system is doing a review against the system. Example, is there a time frame such as a mammogram, and did someone get a preventive mammogram within that time frame? This is not the same as a diagnostic mammogram. The diagnosis is what would drive that. So do they have 2 preventive mammograms within a 24-month period? Do they have an annual wellness visit and a subsequent annual wellness visit within a 12-month period? These are timeframes that are set to look at. These do not require complex medical review. While you could use the discussion period for that, it's not very common that you're going to get that. They will send you an initial findings letter, but as soon as that letter goes out, they also then notify the MAC, and the MAC will set up an overpayment. So many times what's happening with those ones is it's automatically moving into the appeals process. We'll talk more about that in a few moments. So really when we focus on the discussion period, it's your opportunity to go to the RAC and disagree with the medical review decision. That is the best way to use it. So let's talk about just a couple of key points. Again, complex reviews, very important. 30 days after the review results letter date or the day that it's posted into their portal is how long you have to file this. What is the goal? The goal is to not have an overpayment issued by the MAC and then have to appeal the overpayment to the MAC. Instead, to stop all of that. And we're going to talk about one more key thing that comes up in just a few seconds on the advantages. Okay. One thing I want you to note again is I did use a 45-day time frame, and let me just explain that just a bit more here. The 45 days is if they do not receive a request. So no 45 days, or no request for a discussion period within 45 days. What the RAC will do then at that point is notify the MAC. Why do they use 45 days versus 30? If the discussion period ends at 30, why do they use 45? 2 reasons. First, time for mailing. If you put it in on day 29, they're probably not going to have it on day 30. So they want to give you a little bit of a grace period to get it in. Second, if they get it in on day 29, they're not going to have it done by day 30. So they want to give a little bit of time to get that review results and to actually do the review and have the discussions and have the different things with you. So we want to make sure they have that opportunity. Also, if a RAC needs additional information, they may contact you. And they need time to do that. Now they're going to give you a very short time to turn around and get that information back to them. But please note, we don't control that time frame, and based on the length of time they have to complete this process, it may be shorter or longer. Usually it's about 2 weeks, but again, that's a clear usually versus it always is. Make that about as clear as I can. So be prepared and have someone prepared that during this discussion period, directly after you file it, someone may contact you from the RAC. Different than the MAC. Typically, the MAC doesn't always do a follow-up depending, or the cert contractor may not always do a follow-up. It just depends on the situation. The next slide is important because a lot of people say, well, why would I even want to do this process? What does it give me? What does it do for me? One, it allows you to submit missing documentation, which allows the RAC to actually make a medical review decision versus we don't have decision. Because incomplete documentation is a common problem, and it's something that we see every day. And incomplete documentation can be anything from it's missing an order, it's missing a signature, the documentation just isn't there. Please note, it's not a medical necessity denial. That's not the same thing. What we're saying is we can't even make this decision. That's one of the most common problems that we have is incomplete documentation. And inside the medical results letter that you get, the review results letter that you're going to get, it's going to explain what's missing. So you can then take it back and be like, oh, look, I actually have this here. Let me submit to them before they send it off to the MAC and before the MAC opens the repayment. And now we've got to go through the longer appeals process because remember the MAC has a longer time with that. We'll talk more about that. One other key item here, let's say that you do get a medical necessity denial, not a missing documentation, but a medical necessity denial, where you get a missing documentation and you file it, but now you're like, yeah, there's not really going to be, a lot of medical necessity stuff going on here. You might question this. The RAC discussion period offers a doctor-to-doctor discussion. Now, this is where your medical professional, and I use that term in that manner because it could be a physician's assistant, it could be a doctor, is reaching out to the medical director at the RAC. Many times they want it to be, you should have a doctor represented as well, but you could also have someone who did the service there as well. So the doctor to doctor is key there. And the discussion allows them to talk about why it should be medically necessary versus just not being medically necessary. This type of discussion does not occur again. It's sometimes allowed in the administrative law judge part of the appeals process on an overpayment, but that's at level 3. So you've got a variety of ways to get to it. So the doctor-to-doctor discussion is a very unique opportunity that you can request right away, and it's really time-saving, but it also gives your providers the opportunity to go through and to have this information and to have their voice heard. So we really would encourage you to do that. And again, potential to save time and money. Well, here, let's talk about that. If I can get it done, get it reviewed, and it gets canceled, then I don't have to worry about trying to do later on the overpayments and the matchup. Do I have to resubmit money? Oh, no, that's going to get overturned, so I'm going to get that money back. That's saving time and money. There's a lot less information, especially for the first one where it's submitting missing documentation. I will tell you that we receive a lot of appeals on the overpayments, and the reality is, had they done the discussion period with the missing documentation, it would have been overturned. You never would have got the appeal. You never would have got the overpayment. You wouldn't have to wait that full time frame because, again, remember, it's 45 days. Then we process it, and this can take us anywhere from 10 to 30 days to get you the overpayment. Once you get the overpayment, now you'll have to research it, get everything back together to file it. So we'll talk more about that. But you get the kind of gist that it gets very time consuming. And if we could stop all of that up front, that's what we're looking for. And not just as Medicare, but to help you too. It's not hanging over you. You don't have as much research time. You don't have to put as much wait time into it. A variety of different things that go with that. One of the advantages is that's not listed on this slide is that if you do a discussion period and it's still found to be against you, so the original decision was upheld, you do not lose appeal rights. It does not affect your appeal rights. So you still have the full process to have an independent review done by a different contractor through the appeals process. And we'll talk about that because it becomes key in one of the misconceptions that happens here. All right. So what happens on a discussion period or during this time? First, the RACs do have 3 options. They can completely uphold a decision. So you didn't send in the information or you did send in the information. If a RAC does uphold that decision, they will notify the MAC and the MAC will begin the process for an overpayment. At this point, you must wait. Stop and wait for the overpayment request to be sent to you. You can't take any further action until that's done. If you do, this can cause the MAC to be like, hey, you gave us money, but we don't know what to do with it because we don't have an overpayment yet. Now we wind up with 2 overpayments. Oh no, now we've got to get all that sorted out. And sometimes you actually wind up paying it back twice just to have us issue the second time back again. Don't do that. If it's upheld, wait for the overpayment. There's a fully overturn. This is common to do when we have that missing documentation key. And what the full overturn means, they dismiss the finding, completely remove it from the finding. By doing that, the MAC never gets involved. A lot of times the MAC may not even know that a review occurred because it doesn't have anything to do with us in terms of taking money back or in terms of a claim. The last one is a partial overturn. And this is where they look at the claim and they say, yes, this part we're going to stand as an overpayment, and yes, you owe us the money back, but this part we're going to overturn, thus reducing the original amount of the error. So it's a variety of things that can happen. Keep in mind, again, with that partial overturn, it's just going to be like an uphold. You have to wait. You can't take any further action until the MAC gets you the money back. We want to make that as clear as possible because we have providers that are very frustrated and are upset because they've paid it back, but we're asking for it back. And the simple reality is if you had waited for the overpayment, it wouldn't happen. So uphold and partial overturn, we want to make sure you're waiting for those. Once everything is said and done, so you've done it, You've got your review results letter. You've got your discussion period letter. By the way, they do send you a letter letting you know which one of these has occurred. Once that comes out, then if the need is to notify the MAC, it will occur, but not until that time. So that's why it's not a cut 30 days. Oh, it's got to be done by 30 days. That's why there's a couple extra days in there that we've got to allow for that. So what happens if you get an overpayment because they did an uphold or a partial overturn? Well, again, this does not affect your 5 levels of appeal rights, and this is very key. You still can move all the way from level 1 to level 5. Again, level 3 is the first time that you're going to get to talk to anyone again, other than the discussion period. So a lot of times it's very different than what you're thinking. So once you get your overpayment letter, you will appeal the overpayment. And I want you to highlight, underscore, circle on here where it says overpayment. One of the common problems we have is people will say, I want to appeal this claim. That's a claim determination. And keep in mind that the RAC does post-pay reviews, so it could be outside of the 120 days. Also, the original claim determination was not what was wrong. You got paid for it in this case, so the RAC looked at it. Well, that wasn't wrong. The RAC's medical review is what you're saying or you disagree with, which actually results in the overpayment. So when you get ready to file this appeal, be very careful with terminology. We actually do have quite a few that are dismissed because they said they want to do a claim overpayment or a claim determination review for the overpayment, but that's only 120 days from the date of the remit notice, not 120 days from the overpayment letter. And I'm going to talk just more about that 120 days in just on the next slide, but I wanted you to be aware of that. When you talk about the process for filing an appeal on an overpayment versus the process for filing an appeal on a claim determination, it's the same process. It doesn't change. That means that if you use our secure section of our portal, yes, you can do that. We're perfectly fine with that. It's great. Go ahead and use it. There'll be a box in that says, is this related to an overpayment? You want to check that. That then ties us back and helps us understand what you're doing it for. So we'll talk more about that in just a few moments. But whatever you're doing today to file a claim determination, do the same thing. Just use overpayment, not claim determination. Make sure that you give us the financial control number, which is the FCN, it's the overpayment number. You may hear it say that. That way we can definitely tie the two together. So let's talk next about the 5 levels of appeal, because there's a couple of things you want to be aware of with an overpayment that may not necessarily apply to a claim depending on the situation. So first, level 1 is the redetermination, and this is to your MAC, just like always. Medicare Administrative Contractor will do this. So you have a review results letter or an initial findings letter. It doesn't matter. You don't agree with it. These are appealable. You get 120 days to file it from the date of the overpayment request. That is key with the redetermination. It's not the date of the claim. It's not the date of anything related to what the RAC sent you. And that's one of the misconceptions when it comes to the RAC discussion period versus the appeals process. The RAC discussion period will be done before you have the opportunity to do any level 1 through 5 of appeal, because that has to be over before we even send the overpayment request. Once you receive that overpayment request, again, you have a total of 120 days to file, but you can also use what's called a 30-day window. The 30-day window halts the overpayment until after the decision is made. In other words, Medicare won't begin to offset if you don't pay us back in full until after that decision is made. So it's an opportunity for you to have us review the RAC's decision without having us take the money back right up front. One thing to recognize with that 30-day halt is that it does not stop interest from occurring should we uphold the decision. You still owe us money and you still do have to do that. Some providers say, you know, we're just going to pay you back. We'll do the appeal even though we've paid it back, and that is fine as well. There's no reason you can't do that. It's your right to do it either way. I just want to give you the options on that one. The next level of appeal is the qualified independent contractor. Now this is going to have a longer time frame to file. This is 180 days. And what you're looking for on this one is that a redetermination has to be complete. So if you file a redetermination and we dismiss it because you filed it on a claim, that's not complete and you can't move to the reconsideration. But if you filed it on the overpayment and we upheld it or partially upheld it, then you can move on to the reconsideration. So when you look at that, you're going to look at that redetermination notice, whether it's given to you inside the WPS portal or whether it's sent to you in a letter. There'll be a date on it and you get 180 days. At this level, we do have the 30-day halt again. So that means that if you file it within 30 days, Medicare will not begin your offset until after. Medicare will not begin taking that money back until after the decision is made. But again, interest still continues to apply. Both at level 1 and level 2, the quick and the MAC are allowed 60 days to issue a decision. So think about that if you're looking at timing and interest and other things that you're trying to do with an overpayment and how that could save you time or money. From the discussion period, first of all, the overpayment never began. So therefore, you don't have to deal with that. Second, you didn't lose your appeal rights. And third, interest never occurred because the overpayment never began. So using that discussion period can do all of those different things to help save you time and money. The next level is a hearing by the Office of Medicare Hearings and Appeals, sometimes called the Administrative Law Judge hearing. The Administrative Law Judge is actually the judge that does it, that does the hearing. So that's why it's commonly referred to or sometimes referred to as that. If the quick upholds the MAC's decision or partially upholds the MAC's decision, and you meet the amount of controversy, because this is the first time that you're going to have to justify the dollar amounts. There has to be $180 for 2023 in controversy. Then you can file to the hearing, then you can file to the Administrative Law Judge under the Office of Medicare Hearings and Appeals. You have 60 days to file this. Please note, there is no halt on this. There's nothing that's going to work with that 30-day halt. That doesn't come into play with this one. So what will happen is, commonly, the Office of Medicare Hearings and Appeals, the Administrative Law Judge, will take your hearing and they're going to do it either virtually or via telephone. Those are just the common methods. If there's a reason you want to do an in-person, you can ask for that, but they have to approve it. This is the same as all of the other appeals that you may be filing. Keep in mind when it comes to the RAC discussion period, none of this occurs until after the RAC discussion period is done. Once they issue a decision, and this is typically done in 90 days, but not always, but very common. And again, we say typically because if they're backlogged or their workload is high or there's a variety of other things happening, it could be longer than a 90-day period. We'll move to the next one, which is the Appeals Council. Again, this one you have 60 days from the hearing letter to file it. It doesn't stop the overpayment, it doesn't stop interest, it doesn't stop any of that. So Medicare can at this point be taking all of their money back from your other claims that were sent in. And if we find for you or they find for you and overturn the original, we will pay you back. The last option is after the Appeals Council, who has 90 days to make their decision, you can move to the Federal District Court. Now the Federal District Court, you do have to file within 60 days. There is an amount in controversy, and that's $1,850. There is no set time to complete it. It's going to be put on the court docket and will be completed as the court has time. So there's no set like 90 days or anything like that with the Federal District Court. During that time frame, interest will continue to occur. One thing you've heard me mention a few different times is the amount in controversy, and I just want to address that. When the RAC makes a decision, there's a dollar amount that comes up that they're asking for back. So it's either the full allowed amount, the full Medicare paid amount, in which case you would still owe the patient their amount as well. But the amount in controversy isn't based on the allowed amount, it's based on the Medicare payment amount. It's not based on any patient's dollars and cents that they would have paid you. So copay, deductible, coinsurance, that's not what we're looking for. When you go to file for Medicare, you're looking at the amount that Medicare paid you. Now you can put those together. So if you have similar or common issues coming up, you can do that. Even if it's a RAC, overpayment for one thing, and then you've got claim denials for the same thing, you can put all that overpayment and claim denial together to file. And we'll look at those aggregated amounts under the hearing of office Medicare, under level 3 and level 5. So the amount in controversy is a dollar amount that you're asking Medicare for. That has to be met, otherwise level 3 and level 5 will be dismissed automatically. One thing that has come up recently, especially with the RAC findings in the discussion period, is that I can't afford to pay you back, and this is for some of the bigger things. Like the RAC has done some different findings where it's actually costing hospitals millions of dollars in the way that it was billed, and so they have this huge dollar amount, and they're like, we just can't afford to pay this back. They go through the process and they still owe it. One of the differences, we do offer a rebuttal. Now keep in mind, this is a MAC rebuttal because it's an overpayment rebuttal. It's not something to do with the RAC. The RAC did their job. They did a medical review. They have a finding and it stands. So what is a rebuttal? A rebuttal is when you agree you owe the money. Key thing, owe the money. Do not file a rebuttal and appeal. One says I don't owe the money, one says I do. But on the rebuttal, it's that if you were to pay it back today, one lump sum, or pay it back, it will cause you a financial hardship. So if you pay it back over a series, like with Medicare taking back the claims and you have no income coming in from those claims, this will cause a financial hardship. So you do have the right to file a rebuttal to the MAC on the overpayment. Have you noticed that each time I've said MAC, I've emphasized overpayment, and that becomes key. So once you get your overpayment letter and you determine that, yep, you agree, we do owe the money, except we just can't afford to file it right now all the way back. We can't afford to pay it back. If we do, it's not going to work for us. We do have information on our website, and I'll show you where that is in a little while to help you through that financial hardship. But you do have 15 days to file this rebuttal statement. One of the nice things is you file it on the overpayment. You give us the overpayment information. And what we'll do is we'll look at, you're going to give us an extended repayment schedule. How long will it pay? How many payments will you make? What is the payment for each one? All of that will have to be included, but there's specific information given for that. So while all of this is related to the discussion period, some of it occurs after the discussion period. Now keep in mind, it is a medical review. It is both complex and non-complex depending on the type of review that the RAC does. All right, so where are we at now? Now we're going to switch gears just for a little while. I want to cover some of the websites because there's some important information you'll need to know. So I'm going to stop sharing while I open the website. So you're going to see the screen go back to black, and then we'll come back and we'll share the website from there. So why are we choosing these particular websites to share? Each one has key pieces of information. So the first one that I'd like to share is the CMS website, and I just want to verify that Ellen is able to see my screen as the CMS website. Ellen, are you able to see this?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. So on the CMS website, people ask us where the RAC information is and how do they find this recovery audit program information. Some people are confused thinking that they need to go to Medicare, and it's actually under research, statistics, data, and systems. Now you can always search for it. Not a problem. Feel free to do that. But I want to show you where you're going to find some of these key pieces and some things that are coming up. So research, statistics, data, and systems. Once you're inside there, this is part of the compliance program, fee-for-service compliance program. So you'll move to the body, and in the right column, look for monitoring, and then fee-for-service compliance. Once you open that, on the left side, you'll have that vertical list of links. The third one down says Recovery Audit Program, and that's what we're talking about. We're going to open up this page and we're going to see again on the left side the approved topics list. This is an area you can come to and search for every single topic that every single RAC across the nation in all 50 states plus the U.S. territories are looking at. We're not going to go there because it's not our focus today, but I want you to know that it's here. Also, the proposed topics list is a great item for you if you're interested in seeing what the RAC will be looking at in the future. Now keep in mind that the RAC, as part of their process, has to have the topic approved by CMS. Questions or concerns, you have a CMS contact. We're going to scroll down in the body because this becomes important, and this is where we're going to move to for the next link. Previously, people may have heard of Cotivity, which is actually Region 3 right now. It used to be Region 2 as well. It is no longer. The contract has been reawarded, and that's what tomorrow's webinar is. It's for those providers that were in the previous region that are now going to go under Performant. So you can see that has changed up here, and it is ready to go. If you want to know more about that, there's some news articles on this page that you could look at as well. What that means for us, for you, is that all of our states are now covered, or most of, other than some national stuff, are now covered within Region 1 and Region 2. So you can see here's Indiana and Michigan, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska. So they're all covered within these. So it's one RAC website. It's nice. You can see it's automatically listed as the provider portal. We don't have to go any further. Same email, same phone number. So with that said, I want to make you very aware of that change is coming. For those of you that are previously worked with Cotivity, they are no longer the RAC, and so you'll want to sign up for tomorrow to meet Performant. Now, if you select this link, it will open your website, and it's going to look like this one. I did it just in case I had any issues, so I already had it open. What's nice about this is they do have their own portal, which you can sign up for. And again, they're going to talk more about this, and you'll learn more about this tomorrow. It's not really our focus when it comes to the discussion period. Other than that, you can file for the discussion period within the portal. But it's really helpful to know that it's here, that you can check statuses, that you can go and do that. You can see the different regions that they have are available up here. So feel free to attend tomorrow and learn more from them about their portal and their information. What I want to do on their website is scroll down, and you can see I'm moving down here. It takes a little bit to get down. If we get down to the supporting resources, you have a variety of different resources down here. Couple of things. Sample documentation is a great opportunity for you to download and look at information available. Additional documentation and how to submit that. Remember we talked about the ADRs that they could ask for, but then on top of that, they could contact you and want more information. So how do they do that? But the next one is important because that's your discussion request form. That's what we're talking about today. If we select that, it will make me download it. I'm just going to throw it on my desktop just for purposes here. And we're going to go ahead and open it up. And let me make sure you guys can see this. Ellen, is this displaying?
Yes, it is.
All right, perfect. So this is your actual request form. And again, it's Performant, working with CMS. You'll know that they are a contractor. It's all marked that way. This is exactly what I kind of went through today. So it's going to tell you a little bit about it, a little bit about why you'd want to do it. It'll also give you a bit more on that physician to physician, doctor-doctor discussion that they use and how they want to do that and why they do that. So you can do that on this form, but make sure that you have everything in. One thing that is very clear with this is missing documentation. A physician to physician discussion or doctor to doctor discussion doesn't help with missing documentation. The documentation is not there, therefore what are you discussing? Now again, you can see here it's medical record, or it may have not clearly documented, not documented in a way that they could find it, or there's a potential to misunderstand what's documented. That's really what they want to focus on. But that doesn't mean that you can't use the discussion period to submit missing documentation. You just wouldn't want to request the physician to physician for missing documentation. But you could request the two together if the missing documentation meets one of these two criteria. Key thing right here, One of the things that the RAC has noticed or has said is if you use this and you handwrite these forms and then you try to get it to us, a lot of times they're not clear, they're not concise, the information is not able to be read. It's not a good way to do it. So they would prefer that you either type or you use a different PDF version, however you want to do that. And you want to just follow all the information down. Okay. One thing I also want to note is this is not something you can aggregate. So you can't say I have 4 like issues with the RAC for these 4 claims. So I want to put them all together and have one discussion period for it. That's not how it works. It's a discussion on each claim individually. This is different than, remember, where I talked about during the appeals process in level 3 and level 5, you can combine. Don't do that for that. And there has been a lot of confusion over that. So they're trying to get that very clear right here on this form. Don't do this, because that's automatically going to cause problems and you could miss out on your 30-day time frame. If you do need an extension to the 30-day time frame, the RAC is offering you the opportunity to have that as well, but you just need to contact them to talk to them about it so they have an understanding. They don't have a problem with that. They're actually, willing to do it, but without notifying, they automatically know, okay, we're going to give that little bit of extra time frame for flexibility. Okay, what do we do? So I just wanted to bring you aware of that right on here, they do say, yep, contact us. One common thing that happens is people have called our contact center to discuss an extension on this time frame. We can't help you with that. That's not something our contact center will do because we're not requesting the information. We're not involved at this process. Remember, until the RAC notifies us of the overpayment, the MAC is not involved at all. All of this is happening with the RAC before that. And that's what the discussion period is and why you have that 30-day time frame. But again, it's with the RAC. So let's keep going down. Just talks about, the communication, what they're looking for. Again, any information they have. They would encourage you to use their provider portal. It gives them a little bit easier to track the request, gives you easier to track the request and provide other things. So please make sure you consider doing that. And then you're just going to complete the form. Here's where you're going to see the 2 different types of reviews. Again, the automated review is a system edit review. Seriously, a system edit review. It's looking for things that the system can catch. There's no person involved. And a complex review is a little different in that it had to have a person involved. Automated review, you would not have received an ADR. Complex review, you must receive an ADR. So when you look at it, keep track of the 2 back and forth, and then the date. Now, an automated review, you'll see it's got, the review findings notification letter, and you want to have that. Same thing here. Make sure you're getting that. You do not have to attach additional documentation. If all the documentation you have is there already, or the claim needed something not related to documentation, such as, oh man, we should have appended a modifier and we didn't to move it out of a certain global surgery period or something like that, that may not necessarily be a documentation request. So you don't have to attach documentation, but you can. The physician to discussion period, we talked about that. And this is the person that's actually going to be on the call with the physician. So who's going to talk to the medical director at the RAC, and you want to give that person's name. I also want you to be sure to include this part, the credentials. If you don't have the credential, again, a physician has to be on the call. They can have supporting staff, which could be a PA or someone who saw that patient. The physician has to be on the call, the supervising physician, physician with knowledge of that patient, physician with knowledge of that claim. Somehow it's a physician-to-physician discussion. Without that, they will not allow it. They will take the discussion period. They will take the forms and the information you've submitted, but what they will not provide you is the physician-to-physician discussion. So this is a key piece. If you're checking yes here, you want to make sure that you have the line below filled out with the name and credentials. I don't agree with the RAC's decision for the following reasons. One of the things that, just like with an appeal, we get a very generic reason, be as specific as you can. This is medically necessary because on page 6 of the records. Get as much detail in this as you can to help them, especially if you're not doing the physician-to-physician discussion and you're just trying to use like a medical record, for instance. It'll help pinpoint where they want to go. Or you can even say something like, in the medical records, I've added a star next to paragraph 3 on page 4 to support my medical. That will help them know, where are you going with it? Here's why I think it is, and here's what you want to look for. And then you can see down here just the signature, printed name, phone, date, and email of the person submitting the form. Again, this does not need to be the same person listed here in the medical professional. This is just someone who's associated or affiliated with them in some way, affiliated with the claim in some way. Could be someone that works for the facility, but we need to have someone in that area who has to sign and date it, which is the official request. So this becomes key. If you don't fill out the form properly, they will not be able to do the discussion period. Now, I want to make sure that you're getting that done right and you're going from there, because this is the starting point for everything. So again, you can look at a variety of other items available on this website, on the Performant website. They do have a lot of pieces of information that may help you, but those are the key items related to the discussion period. One of the things that, if we go back to the CMS website and you want to learn the discussion periods and all of that type of information, you can come to resources and scroll down, and you will actually see it's called a SOW, Statement of Work, right here. The statement of work for each region, and this is the one that just changed, which is why I said Region 2. It used to be Cotivity and it's now Performant, describes for you what they have to do. So the discussion period would be part of the statement of work. So though I've given you a brief overview without going into as much detail as what they do underneath, if you want all of that detail or you're interested in more information, absolutely take a look at this. It will then explain why they have the form laid out the way that they do, why they have certain elements within their provider portal and the way that they do. So again, that's back on the CMS website. Okay. Let's jump to the WPS website. So the discussion periods occurred. You've gotten a letter saying, hey, we either had a finding or we upheld the finding. So had a finding, upheld the finding. Now what do you do? Well, now remember, it's the RAC's job to inform the MAC to take the money back through the overpayment process. So again, you didn't reply to the discussion period, your choice, or you did reply, but the RAC still either upheld or partially. So we're going to come to our website and we're going to look at a couple of items here. There's a couple of things on our website you want to be aware of. One, pretty basic information for you will be under the appeals section because you are appealing an overpayment. So let's go here. And you will find some of the same information is actually crossed into the overpayment. Okay. I'm in the J5 Part B section. You could be in the J5 Part A or the J8. They all work the same and have the same information. So under the appeals section, a couple of key articles. One, if you're down in the bottom, if you look under reconsideration, how to appeal a claim determination will have information for you. This one is what a lot of people look to, and we don't want people to do that because if you're here, you're not getting the right information. On the other hand, how to appeal an overpayment decision, which you'll see is in the fourth column down the line there. And this is in the body, and you want to make sure you're looking at this one because that's what we're talking about. It gives you all of the different pieces of information for submitting, what you need to make sure is there, how to use our portal, if you happen to need a cover sheet or something like that. A lot of people ask us, what is this Section 935 limitation? Remember I talked about that 30-day hold where we don't take the money back? The section of the law that put that in place is 935. I won't get into all the details of it, but just know that's what it is. So Section 935 limitation simply is that 30-day hold saying don't take the money back until a decision's made. What this will do then is allow you to move through and to understand how to appeal an overpayment when you have an overpayment from a RAC decision, whether you did or did not do the discussion period. It's very important that you meet these criteria because if you don't, we wind up with a lot bigger issue. And jump back here. So what else is important on our website? I'm going to use a different method to help you find something. So if you want to dispute something on the RAC, right? We do have an article that will remind you of the information. And the reason that I'm doing this is to show you a different method to find it. But you can see up here we have disputing a recovery audit. We want to go to that because you're going to dispute it. It's going to say, oh, you're in medical review under guides and resources, and this is how you just dispute a recovery audit contractor overpayment. Again, notice this one does talk and begin with the discussion period with the RAC. So we want to make it clear that there is an opportunity to see this information that I've given you on our website as well. It's very important that you are aware of where it's at. So again, this one is not in appeals. This one is in medical review under guides and resources. But again, you can simply search for it, and that's why I did it that way. You could search for it to bring it up. On our website, one more item I definitely need you to be aware of, because we did talk about it, is in overpayments. Now remember we talked at the very end and we said, hey, hold on, what happens if I just can't afford to pay this back? I don't know how to do that. And I said, oh, you can file a rebuttal. The rebuttal works with an extended repayment schedule. That's what it's called. It's an ERS. So if you come to the body and you go into the topics, this in the middle column, or I'm sorry, the second to left column, you'll see something called extended repayment schedule requests. We get these wrong on occasion because there's certain things that have to be there. And so we have a checklist provided to make sure you get the right information. We have the form provided to make sure you get the right information. You have to make sure that you have certain things if you're trying to go over a period of time. So you want to make sure you're getting that information available to you within this context. So when you're looking at the extended repayment schedule, that's what you're asking for with a rebuttal. There's information again on the rebuttal out there as well, and Alan put that article title in to the chat for you. So we want to make sure that you have everything going on and you have information available and where you're going to go and how you're going to get it. So it's not just about the discussion period, it's about what happens after the discussion period. So it's important, a couple of things. One thing I do think is important to mention at this point, again, we've talked about the change from Cotiviti to Performant, which just began, and that's why you're going to have a meet and greet tomorrow. If you want to go, feel free to do that. Sign up for the webinar and have the opportunity to hear from them and see their portal. Also, WPS is looking at our website and how can we improve it and make it better for you. Keep in mind, we don't have a time frame for this. We don't have like, oh, it's going to be in June 1st, it's going to be in April 1st, it's going to be in, there's no time frame set. We're still working on some of the details on the underlying programming and, you know, what other providers want. But it's also a great opportunity for you to give us your opinion, and you can use this feedback tab right here and give us your opinion and tell us, hey, I'd like to see this, or I'd like to see, I want this, or is this an opportunity? Overall, you're doing good. You want to make sure that you have that as an available opportunity. So we really would like to hear from you. On our website, and I've mentioned this a couple of different times, I had Ellen put the information in the chat feature. Sorry, I was just waiting for it to load there. So we come to the training section, which again was just topics and training. If you're interested in registering for either one of the event tomorrow or the question and answer related to this next week, please feel free to come. Again, it was in the topic and then it's live event. Here you can also see today's event. This one is just going to end, but it would give you the opportunity to download the webinar material. If you did not have a chance to do that, you can select this link, copy the password, paste it in. It'll go ahead and do that. Please note tomorrow is the Meet the Contractor with the RAC. It's kind of a Meet the Contractor. There's not like a presentation or a true download at this point, so we don't have that material available. But if you're interested in the Q&A session coming up next week, you can also come all the way down here and you can go to this one, which would then allow you to register again next week for the webinar, and you can get the material for that webinar. Do you really need to download that material? Well, if you have this one, I wouldn't download it. It's the same set of slides with some of them removed because it is a QA period. The goal is to really cover it in a question and answer session for what you want. But I wanted to make sure that you are aware that this information is there and how to register for it, because again, we are basically out of time, and I'm not really going to have the opportunity to take question and answers live on here. So Do you want to collect them? Want you to put them in chat, want to be able to download them, want to get to the answers. So if you really do or have questions and you are interested, please make sure you attend this 4-5 event. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and just bring back up that PowerPoint for just a few moments. And hopefully this will display for you. Oops, let me swap screens out here. Okay, so we do have a survey. Right now you can stop. If you're ready to take the survey, you can scan that QR code, jump out there, take that survey. If you have this PowerPoint downloaded, it says survey link, and you'll see that on the left side, and you're absolutely able to select that. Ellen's going to put that survey link directly into that chat for you. Select that. This is the final step to completing the process. So instead of having to go to the Learning Center, do all these other steps, you don't have to do that anymore. Take the survey, you're done. Here's what's going to happen. You're still going to get a pop-up box. It's going to look like maybe a spam pop-up box or something like that. And the pop-up box actually is a WebEx box. And it tells you that you're leaving WebEx and that your host, myself, would like to move you to a survey. Or would like to move you to an external site. I apologize. It doesn't say the word survey. It says to an external site. If you say okay, it will open the survey that way as well. Gives you the opportunity. At any given point, you can come back and take the survey. You will receive both a link and a web address for the survey and the follow-up email. That follow-up email will come within 2 hours of this event. If you don't get it, let us know. Again, use that WPS.GHA.education at WPSIC and we'll get you the information. The email that comes out also contains your certificate. So there's not additional information from there. I will close the survey on the 29th. If you want to make sure that you have your questions answered, please get them to me so that we can get those incorporated into the Q&A session next week. Otherwise, you can get them back, but we do have 30 days following the QA session. So instead of 30 days following this session, it's actually 30 days following the QA because, again, that's the session that we do for the question and answers. And all of that is then, again, explained on this last slide. This slide we simply put together for you. If you do have claim-specific questions, please contact the customer service area. If you have discussion period information, again, discussion period information, you can ask the RAC or you can ask us, and that's through our customer service area. If you want to file for a discussion period, file to the recovery audit contractor. Don't file to us. We can't help you through that process. All right. With that said, I'd like to thank you for attending and wish everyone a great day. Everybody have a great day. Thanks. You can now disconnect from the webinar.